In the books, oh, you don't have the books anyway.
Maybe say for people listening in or for the recording.
Okay, so it's AyinBase 14. Ayin Aleph.
Somebody's knocking at the door.
Okay. Recording.
Why are they knocking if the door is open?
Well, they must have closed it. My family members don't know about it.
Oh.
All right, fine. All right, so I said this, I know the line over there, this is when we were up to this morning. And we started discussing the whole phenomenon of oil. All the way back, we asked the question, why is there oil altogether? It's on page Kuf Ayin Aleph. 3 lines from the top.
I need the keeper of the van that belongs to Sean.
No, I don't have it.
What do you mean? They didn't leave it here?
Didn't leave it here this time. Why?
We already put 3 cars back.
If they move my car, they can.
Bohen means in the Chayuhi, in the Shira.
Yeah.
That's what that means?
Right.
Uh-huh. And what's the actual translation? It says, Hu me'ein ha'mo'er. Who? What is the who there?
The oil.
Me'ein ha'mo'er who? In other words, the oil is what is me'ein ha'mo'er. And then how do you continue the sentence into Mahutza ve'atzmusai?
No, here's how you read it.
Yeah.
Shebehem melubash hakav. In the spheres is melubash hakav.
Yeah.
Me'oyer in soif. The kav which comes from oyer in soif. Okay. And now he describes that quality. Since it's me'oyer in soif, sheha'oyer hu mein ha'moyer. Oil is mein ha'moyer. Which means that oil possesses a quality of moyer. And what is this moyer? This moyer is who mehusa v'atzmusa. The moyer is mehusa v'atzmusa. So mehusa v'atzmusa is contained. An element of mehusa v'atzmusa is contained in the oil. The oil is me'ein of mehusa v'atzmusa.
So the mahus soy, the atzmus soy, it doesn't mean the mahus and the atzmus of the oyer. It means who mahus soy, the atzmus soy of atzmus.
Atzmus, right. Right.
And what's the abbreviation? What's the abbreviation at the end of that sentence?
You and Shom. You and Shom means check over there, look over there, in the Geret HaKedesh.
I got you. Okay.
And then he concludes, Harei, Mashe bekoichoi v'yicholtoi lahaves. The fact that it is capable to be mahava, as we discussed this morning, means in Mahava Yesh Miyayin, Shezehu Bekoyach Asmus Dafka. This koyach that there is the capability of b'mahava yesh miyayin, that koyach is exclusively in koyach ha'atzmus, and that koyach yesh koyach zeh b'ha'oir. This koyach is present in the oir gam k'moi shehu li'achar hatzimtzum. Even as the oir is after the tzimtzum, it possesses the koyach lahavois yesh miyayin. In other words, it possesses a koyach akin with the atzmus, with the koyach of atzmus. Even though this is after the tzimtzum, yet the oil after the tzimtzum is, as we said before, that this is the oil in the kav, this is choser v'heir. Even though there was a tzimtzum, it brings back the oil shelifnei hatzimtzum through the tzimtzum, and therefore that oil possesses the qualities of oil shelifnei hatzimtzum, and oil is me'ein hamoyer, and therefore it possesses the qualities of atzmos itself. Mipnei shehu me'ein hamoyer, because oil, by definition, is me'ein hamoyer.
Seemed like at the start of this year there's going to be some kind of introduction about ore in general, saying we're discussing ore, we're saying why does it exist?
No, I'm going back to the beginning. Maybe we'll recapture the this whole discussion started from a question. Why is there air altogether? And after discussing this for a while, we came to the conclusion that actually there is nothing in the atzmos that compels that there should be any air. It's entirely volitional. Birtzoinoi, that atzmos wanted to be nisgala, and gilui is through oil. And this is how oil was created in the first place. Despite the fact that this is what's called a volitional creation, but what was created? Something that is megala atzmos. Because it was created because atzmos wanted to be nisgala. And megala atzmos. Megala atzmos means that it is actually reflective of what atzmos is. The thing that sentence, that it's reflective of what atzmos is, as we discussed this morning, there are two aspects. One is that the oir has an element of a lakus, just like atzmos is a lakus. And we'll discuss this in a moment. And then he says that there is furthermore, it carries even the koyach ha'atzmos. Koyach ha'atzmos, this is something which is completely unique of atzmos. So let me explain the terms that I just now used. It is inyan elakus. What's meant elakus?
What is it in Yinelikus?
The oil is reflective of atzmos, which means oil is a godly phenomenon, godly quality. What is, in our terminology, what do we mean by a godly quality? So there are many different ways to represent this, but we have been using the term of the Rambam, that there is a motzui rishoin. And it was mentioned this morning that the union for Atzmus is Mitziusi Me'atzmusi. What is the principle of Motzer Rishon? And what is the principle of Mitziusi Me'atzmusi? So again, this morning, we made the following point. We distinguished between Chochmah and every other faculty, every other koyach. And we said that there are different seichel at the level other lower than Chochmah. That seichel is based on some kind of a phenomenon, some kind of a basis. What does that mean? It means like this. I have a question, and seichel provides an answer to the question. The very fact that this seichel provides an answer to the question, that substantiates a seichel. Because otherwise I would have a question. That gives substance to the seichel. That this is what verifies the seichel. A seichel that is verified as a result of some kind of a question is not the etzem pure seichel. What is the principle? Okay, stay online here. Chochmah recognizes the truth directly, not by a process of question and answer. What kind of truth is this that does not come through a process of question and answer? In other words, it doesn't get substantiated through some kind of a question. It is something that is self-substantiating. It has an inherent truth. This is the Ayin that we said. That the Rambam says, it's Motzer Rishon. This is why Chochmah is based on the Motzer Rishon. We many times said that the principle of Chochmah is that the real insight of Chochmah is not what you see, but the fact that you know that there is such a thing as an absolute truth. And this is what makes it possible for you to see what you see in Chochmah. Because Chochmah is not based on any kind of proofs. But you see something real. How can something real be if there is no proof? The proof of it is that it comes from Motzer Rishon, from our first being. This is what makes it possible for it to be. Okay. So far we're still going in circles a little bit. So here's what we said this morning that clarifies this circular logic a little bit. Clearly, this is something which is possible only if one engages his own chochmah. But I just want to point out something that I think comes out very clear. Chassidus explains that sight, the Gashmis, is akin to chochmah. What is special in sight? We explained this morning. Sight is very unique among all other faculties, among other senses. What's unique about sight? It is that you are certain, you see the truth of it, something without an air of doubt, even beyond any other kind, much more real than touch and taste or anything else. And yet, in touch and taste, you come in contact with the object. And in sight, you don't come in contact with the object. And yet, it is even more real than touch and taste. How can that be? So here's what we explained that clarifies this principle. Everything in the world exists within certain parameters, which means it could be, it could not be. There's no must be in the world. There's no must be. Nothing touches a reality that is undeniable, that could not be. And for this we describe the following. If you touch the table, what part of the table are you touching?
The outside.
You're touching the word, the touchable, the tangible. You're touching not the table, but what the table is made of.
The edge.
Huh?
The edge.
You're touching how the table is represented in the physical world. But what is a table? The table is a human principle, and a table changes completely if a table is in the store, or in the street, or a table is in the house in the dining room. The reality of the table is in the house, in the dining room, and people sitting around it. That's the reality of the table. This is where it assumes a real presence. This reality you cannot touch. When you touch a table, you're touching its physical representation, and it's totally meaningless. It's a piece of wood. When you see a table in the house, inside you see the entire context. It perfectly makes sense. Yes, it's a table in the house. It belongs there. It's for real. You understand? It's not just imitating something. It's the reality itself. This reality, this is an intangible element. This is what the table represents: a human being, human life, human intellect. Touch and any other faculty does not reach that. Sight does reach it. When you come into a house and you see a setup, you are seeing this reality. You don't see the physical table, the physical chair, the physical people. You see the reality that it represents. Now, what you see why it is there, not just what is there physical. This is the phenomenon of Chochmah. Chochmah sees things from a godly perspective, meaning from a point of reality. It's real because it's godly. Because it has a real meaning for being. This is the principle. The Rambam says that in order to have Chochmah, you must first recognize that there is a first being. Meaning to say, If not for the first being, there could not be such a thing as a real presence. Everything will be relative. Everything is precarious. This is what we were discussing in a few days, a whole week. The principle that Avraham Avinu, when he came to the world, and he was talking to the pagans of his day, and they saw the world as a whole bunch of different gods conflicting. Each one is doing his own thing. The sun is doing its thing, the moon is doing its thing. The summer, the winter, and everything was doing its own thing. Unrelated to the other, and each one is conflicting, each one is trying to overcome the other. The sun, the light is fighting the darkness, and darkness is fighting the light. This is the way they saw it. Avraham came to them and said, this is not what the reality is. The reality is it's a bira. It's a palace. And the palace has everything. In the palace there's light and dark. There's day and night. There's cold and hot. There's everything. And everything together constitutes one reality, one godly creation. It's a bira. That is a complete revelation. That was complete breakthrough to them. On that basis, he comes and said, "Yevshel bira blame money." Therefore, there's a money. And this is how he introduced God to them. There's a bira. There's a reality. Therefore, there is, like I said, there's a motivation. If there's a bira, there's a motivation. Something that substantiates it, makes it, gives it a presence. Oir, Chochmah relates to Oir. You can't touch Oir. In our Moshel, that's to conclude this, in our Moshel, we have this experience. Everybody recognizes this. That's why we speak about this all the time. We have a host and a guest. The host invites the guest to join him for dinner. And the host serves the guest a hefty dinner. No matter what he will serve him. All these things that he serves him, he can taste and he can enjoy, and it's healthy and so forth. The real thing that he gives him is his own presence, which means if the host at any time picks up and says, "Okay, I'm leaving, enjoy your dinner, I'm going," what will be the reaction of the guest? You're left with nothing. What's missing? You gave him his dinner. The reality is missing. The meaning of this whole get-together is missing. This is the principle of Motzerish, the principle of Atzmus. And this Atzmus element is carried on through the Tzimtzum in the Oir. The Oir is representing this quality, this element. Oir me'inam Oir. Which means, in very simple terms, this is what we said, that actually in the creation itself, in the world itself, we can clearly identify a godly quality, a bligvul quality, like we said many times, a phenomenal thing, which the scientists, with all their research, with all their wisdom, cannot possibly explain. And that is, why can't you take a piece of matter and destroy it? Eliminate from existence. You can't do it. You can't. Because this matter is a creation, a godly creation, has a godly quality to it. Has a truth beyond its presence. It's there not because of the qualities that was imbued in it. It's there because God wants it. And there's nothing you can do to eliminate it. Hashem's words, as the Hashem says, and finish. That's eternal. Okay, so the big thing that we were trying to explain, to the extent possible to understand it, but the point that the Rebbe is making here, is that the oil is not only that it's similar to the moir, but it's actually me'ein hamoir. It has a moir quality. A moir quality means that just as the moir creates yesh mi'ayin, the oil too can create yesh mi'ayin. What is the principle of yesh mi'ayin? Just very briefly. In simple physical terms, it would mean this. If I have my cup over here and I want to move it to a different place, so normally I would have to pick it up and move it. That way, the fact that the cup changed place from this place to this place, it can be very clearly understood on the cup's level. It was moved from here to here. The cup has a place in the physical world, and you move it from this place. What if the cup moves because I wanted to move? I did not exert any physical action to move it. I wanted to move, so it moves. That's make yesh mi'ayin. This is possible only because of atzmus. This koyach ha'atzmus is retained in the oil even after it seeps. This is what I was explaining. In the oil of the key.
Because it's made no more.
Because it's mayamor. Oil is always mayamor. It's always pointing to the moir and says, this is what we said this morning. This is the famous saying that a chosid is a shtickle Rebbe. Because of his connection to Rebbe, he's a shtickle Rebbe.
This is a good week to say that.
Yeah.
Can I stop you and ask you just for a minute? This thing we just discussed about the cup.
Okay, yeah.
This is a mushal for yesh ma'ayin. Because that's because you're saying there's no physical explanation of how that cup moved. And it's a physical thing.
Right. It's not physical explanation. There is not, it moves not because something, not through the tzimtzum. I was mitzamtzim and it went down to the level of the cup and moved it. It moved. I was aloof. I was in like a melech moves. Like Gemara says, Omer Malka Oker Tura. A melech can uproot a mountain by his words.
I see. So something, what's moving the cup, if that were to happen, would be something completely out of the realm of the cup entirely.
That's right.
And that's what yesh ma'ayin means. The yesh is
this is an illustration of yesh ma'ayin, and this is the principle says with koyach ha'atzmus. Oil. How does oil? Normally we say oil. The oil Hashem illumines the world. How? The oil travels and comes down to the world after traveling 93 million miles, and it illumines the world. Then there's another element which we discussed many, many times. That's called the Etzem Hashemesh, the presence of the sun. The presence of the sun illuminates not by journeying and engaging in the world of nature. The sun comes up and day comes. It's not even light. It transforms, it changes completely the entire reality. This is the difference between light and day, the Pasuk says. And that is speaking about oil that was created b'yom rishon, for which there was no luminary. Clearly it was not the oil that engaged in the world. It just illuminated, it just made day instead of night.
What happened to the Chochmah Ayin in this discussion of day?
Nothing was brought into the world to eliminate the darkness. We discussed it a long time ago. This is I'll bring it in. I'll bring it in now. Try to bring it in a nutshell, if possible. The difference between dark and day, night and day, is that in night you can encounter everything that exists by touch. And if you're encountering it by touch, you're encountering it not because of what the message that it stands for, but because you're walking and it obstructs your movement. So you can feel your way around and you feel that there is something there. It's not the reality of it. Day is a completely different thing. Day you recognize what it is. It's not an obstruction. You recognize its reality. When the world was first created, it did not have an element of truth. It was all mitzimtzum, all darkness. It was all world. Hashem said, let there be light, which means He said, let the truth that this world represents a godly quality, let that be, allow this to surface, to be recognized. And that is surfacing through light, through day. That light did not have to have a luminary. It was not dependent on a physical activity. And as we said, in a certain sense, that remained in the sun. As Exynos explains all the time, that the sun light, if it were pure physical, it should burn out. If the light comes from the heat of the sun, then the sun should have been diminished, should burn out. How much fuel can you feed? It burns and burns and it's out. It does not diminish at all. That means that this light is not fuel dependent. It's not dependent. It's not the product of the heat of the sun. It's what's called, the sun is called etzem behiri. That's what etzem means. Etzem behiri means the sun is an etzem of behiri, a bright etzem. The bright etzem, wherever it comes, it becomes bright automatically, without any effort on the part of the sun. This is the principle of day. Day does not fight with darkness. It just doesn't recognize that darkness exists. Baruch, you with me?
I'm with you, but I was on mute. Yes, I'm with you.
Shlomi Anderson, you with me?
Yeah, to some degree.
Okay. All right, this is what the Rebbe is pointing out. Oir is Bein HaMoir. Oir is a very special thing. Normally we say oil, like in our physical world, oil travels from the candle, oil travels from the sun, and it reaches the earth and it illuminates it. But we say this oil is not illuminating by function, by engaging in the darkness. The sun comes up and it eliminates darkness. Because the sun is a etzim behir. We have the same muscle is in the neshama, giving life to the goof. The neshama touches the goof, and there is the essence of life in the goof. That essence of life is not goof dependent. It is not there because the goof is able to accept it. There is essence of life, and this essence of life is eternal. Okay, it's the best I could say. Yes.
Why is if the Or is Bein Amora, why do different people perceive the Or differently? If it's Bein Amora, it has a certain quality, and why should everyone have a different level of being able to interact with that Or? It's there not because it's there like Bein Amora, so it has all these qualities. It's there for a reason. Why does it get broken up?
The truth is, they don't perceive it differently. The real difference between one person and another, how they perceive it, is how they perceive the truth. If they know that there's a Motzi Rishon, then they will perceive the light as the true light. If they don't recognize it as a Motzi Rishon, which means they recognize only natural phenomena. So they're limiting what they say. They see it beyond what they say. Oh, it cannot be. Because it has to be some kind of a natural levushim, a natural function. And they force themselves not to see it.
Gotcha.
They force themselves not to see it.
When the expression on or is me'ein amor, me'ein means what exactly?
Of the quality.
Rabbi,
Uh-huh.
you mentioned earlier that matter has this inherent godly quality that cannot be eliminated because it's totally. So if we have this in matter itself, and it seemingly relates to a higher.
It's a creation. It's a created entity.
But I mean, so is art. I mean, why can't we? So is art. Why can't we relate to the matter and say, look, the matter is like this, and see that there's God based on this, and not have to have the in general? Why do we have to have? What does give me that I cannot necessarily get from just seeing the creation itself, and that it's godly?
If not for the oil, then we would know matter only by touch. And then we would not recognize this reality phenomenon in matter. Like I said, you touch a table, you don't touch something real, you touch something that has only limited value, limited reality. It is due to the oil that illuminates the world that enables us to see that there is a reality in the world. And this is like exactly what he says, that in truth there's an element of bli gvul in everything in the world, even in the over mitzumtzim. Okay, there's much. All right, I just want to keep together here. Okay, so we are on the line that says Hamoir. Okay, Hare. Thus, from this whole discussion, we see Sheinei Doime his habas ha'oir l'shara his habas, that the creation of the oir is not similar to anything else that was created. Ukmo his habas ha'kelim, such as the kelim. The kelim were created and the oil was created, but it is a completely different phenomenon of creation. And what is the difference? It is, in summary, the following: the hagam, the hoir, hagam kan the tzimtzum. That even though that the oil also comes to the tzimtzum, ubibchinas yesh meyayin, and it also has the quality of yesh meyayin. The kol mokom, but yet still harei hu bibchinas dveikus. It retains the quality of dveikus to the source. That is the inyan from oir. That it says it stays dobuk to the source, and it's pointing to the source. And thus it is of the quality of the etzem. And therefore it has a koyach of the etzem. Huh?
Double.
Connected. So, as I said many times, we have all kinds of different means of understanding this, and it's a miracle that there is such a thing. The first thing for us is to understand that in the world there are two different categories of creatures. There is everything, and there is the human being. Totally different categories. Everything in the world represents some kind of a quality. This animal has this quality and this quality. Its being in the world represents that a limited function, limited quality. The human being has no limit in terms of what he stands for in the world. And the Torah says that Abraham created the human being, and the human being owns the world. So the whole world was created for the sake of the human being. Right in the onset, when he was created, he was given, even before he was created, in a plan, he was created so that he would rule the world. As a result of that, we have the following phenomenon. This is just the background to understand where it comes from. We have the phenomenon that we speak all the time. And the Gemara says, Odom shein le bayis ein le odom. A person that does not have a bayis, a home, a place for a bayis, is not an odom. Why is he not an odom? He can still act and do all the things that a human being does. He can eat and sleep and learn and talk and do everything. But he's not an odom. He's lacking the fundamental odom quality. What is he lacking? He's lacking a true presence in the world. His presence in the world is only functional, but he's lacking a true presence in the world. True presence in the world, he means that a piece of the world is his. That's means a true presence. No other creature has that quality, has that ability. A human being can own a piece of the world. by godly decree, and it is his. This means that the human being in the world has an etzem quality. And how do we sense this etzem quality? And I think I said before, like the etzem of the sun and so forth, it's all reflected in this human being. Like I said before, person buys a house, no matter how big the home is. The minute he owns his home, he is automatically present in every last corner of the home. He doesn't have to visit and claim every piece of the home. He owns the home. The whole home is his automatically. And it is illustrated very, very tangibly in the following situation. Let's say a person who owns a home and he lives in this home, and then he decides he wants to expand the home. So he takes one wall off and moves it 10 feet out. Now the house is 10 feet larger. Could be, who knows, could be 2 times the size as before. Does he have to visit those 10 feet in order to be present in those 10 feet? He's automatically present. How is he automatically present? This is called an etzem. He has an essential presence. This essential presence, this is truly a godly phenomenon, because God gave him that type of a presence in the world, that type of right, and this is why he's automatically there. Whatever he owns, he is automatically there. And it's not, as we discussed many times, his owning of the home is not functional. It's not because he uses it, but because that's his home. Like we said, if somebody wants to move into your home, you have a 3-story house and you have an attic, and he climbs into the attic, and he wants to set up his dwelling in the attic, and he says, "By what right are you going to throw me out? You're not using the attic. You don't even know it's there. I'm living here. I'm not bothering you." Can you do that? Why not?
It's his. The whole house is his.
It's his, but in what way is he infringing on him? He's not infringing on his action, on his comfort or anything. He's infringing on something very, very special. What is it? Whatever you treat in this house, you're treating on me. I am present everywhere. No matter where I sit, I am present everywhere. If you walk in this house, you're walking on me. This is what we said before. The sun illuminates by its presence, not by throwing its oil and by spreading out. Its presence,
So
this is what makes
What is the
day.
connection of all this to Yeshmi Ayin?
This is the Yeshmi Ayin phenomenon.
The spreading out wherever?
No.
Which
It's
part of
spreading
it?
out without process.
Not having to go through any kind of a process.
Right, without process. How are you there? Which part of you is there? My will is there.
Yeah. That's why if he lets you be there, he could be there. He won't be treading on him.
What?
That's why if he lets you be in the attic, he could be in the attic and not bother him.
That's right.
And if he doesn't want him to be there, even though he doesn't know he's there, he's
That's
still
right.
bothering
That's
him.
right. My will is there. That's it. That's when he said, we quote from the Center, That's it. That's the reality of Etz. A human being was given by God an atzmius presence in the world. That does not exist in anything else.
Rabbi, this is probably off, but I'm curious. For instance, the sun, where the sun is, it's day. Correct? Everywhere on earth, it's day.
Yeah.
But it has a location in relation to the earth, and it casts shadows.
Right.
So that day is apparently is not as everywhere ubiquitous as it is the marshal.
Right. So this is what we said. The oil Shenivra B'Yom Rishon, the initial oil, all the Rishon was able to see Misefer and not Sefer. There was no obstruction whatsoever. That light encompassed the entire world without any obstruction. But because that this defied the nature of the world, so it had to be concealed. But an aspect of it remained. The whole thing had to be concealed, otherwise there would be no world. But a certain aspect of it remained. And that is in the this is day. The sun comes up and it's day, finished. This is why the Pasuk said, "Vayikra Elokim lo oir yoim." What's the difference? Light and day. It's a big difference. Light is a functional light. Day is not a functional. Day is an essential.
Day represents the domain.
That's right. All right, so this is all the struggle here. Okay, so this is what I would say. This whole struggle is in order to point out that the oil, mein hamoyer, and retains moyer quality to the extent that even beyond the fact that it goes to the tzimtzum, and it is misamtzim, and even the oil mitzumtzum retains the essential truth of oil, all the way to the point where it yes because what we said initially that it is b'chinas ein sof, even though it's limited, and it still has a quality of ein sof. And then ultimately we're saying not only it has a quality of ein sof, it has a quality of etzem, because of this phenomenon that oil remains connected to the source.
La